With Crimson Desert now officially out for over 2 weeks, the conversation has completely shifted. We're no longer dealing with speculation, curated demos, or carefully edited trailers. This is the full picture. Reviewers have rolled credits, spent dozens of hours in its world, tested its systems inside and out, and now we finally know what Crimson Desert actually is, not just what it was trying to be. And the verdict? It's one of the most ambitious games in years, but also one of the most divisive. Let's start with what almost everyone agrees on because there are a few areas where reviewers are surprisingly unified. And the biggest one is still the visuals. Even after release with no marketing filters in place, Crimson Desert is being called one of the most visually impressive open world games ever made. This isn't just about high resolution textures or detailed character models. It's the way everything comes together. Weather systems dynamically affect visibility and movement, lighting shifts naturally throughout the day, and large-scale battles feel chaotic in a way that looks almost cinematic without actually being scripted. Some reviewers have doubled down on comparisons to Red Dead Redemption 2 in terms of immersion, while others say it surpasses The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt in raw technical presentation. At the very least, visually, this game delivered on the hype. But once you get past that initial wow factor, the conversation becomes much more layered, starting with combat. This is one of the most talked about aspects in reviews, and it's also one of the most divisive. On one side, you have reviewers who absolutely love it. They describe the combat as weighty, reactive, and incredibly dynamic, with a level of freedom that allows players to approach encounters in creative ways. It's not just about memorizing combos. It's about reacting to the environment, using physics to your advantage, and adapting on the fly. For those reviewers, Crimson Desert feels like a natural evolution of systems seen in games like Dragon's Dogma, with a bit of Assassin's Creed Valhalla mixed in. On the other side, though, some reviewers argue that the same systems that make combat exciting can also make it frustrating. The physics-based interactions don't always behave consistently, enemy AI can feel unpredictable in the wrong ways, and certain encounters can devolve into chaos that feels less like skill-based gameplay and more like the game working against you. Over long play sessions, that inconsistency becomes more noticeable, and for some players, it starts to wear thin. This split in opinion is a huge part of why Crimson Desert's overall reception feels so mixed. The open world is another area where the full release has given reviewers a lot more to say, and again, the response is both impressed and cautious. There's no denying that the world is dense and packed with activity. Random events, large-scale battles, dynamic weather, side quests, and emergent gameplay systems all combine to create a world that feels alive in a way many open-world games struggle to achieve. Some reviewers have said it avoids the typical checklist fatigue that plagues the genre, offering instead a more organic sense of exploration. However, once you push deeper into the game, 20, 30, even 50 hours in, some cracks start to show. A number of reviews mention that while the systems are impressive, they don't always evolve enough over time. Activities can start to feel repetitive, and the sense of discovery that's so strong early on begins to fade. It's not that the world becomes boring, but rather that it doesn't always sustain the same level of excitement throughout the entire experience. For a game of this scale, that's a critical point, and it's something that comes up repeatedly in post-launch reviews. Story and characters are where opinions start to diverge even more. Now that reviewers have experienced the full narrative, there's a clearer consensus forming, and it's not as strong as some might have hoped. The story of Macduff and his companions has its moments, particularly when it leans into character-driven interactions and smaller, more personal stakes. But many reviewers feel that it struggles to maintain a consistent tone, often bouncing between grounded storytelling and large-scale spectacle without fully committing to either. As a result, the narrative can feel uneven, with pacing issues and character arcs that don't always land as intended. That doesn't mean the story is bad, but it's rarely being described as a standout. In a genre where narrative can be the defining factor, that puts Crimson Desert in an interesting position. It excels in systems and presentation, but doesn't quite reach the same heights when it comes to storytelling. Performance, which was a concern during previews, has also become a major talking point now that the game is in players' hands. While some reviewers report relatively stable performance, especially on higher-end hardware, others have encountered noticeable issues. Frame rate drops during large battles, occasional bugs, and moments of jank are all part of the conversation. None of this completely breaks the experience, but it does reinforce the idea that Crimson Desert is a game pushing its systems to the limit, and sometimes beyond. Post-launch patches have already started addressing some of these issues, but as of now, performance is still a factor in how the game is being evaluated. One of the most interesting aspects of the reviews is how often they circle back to the game's ambition. This is not a safe, by-the-numbers open-world RPG. Crimson Desert is trying to blend genres, push technical boundaries, and create systems that interact in ways we don't usually see. For some reviewers, that ambition pays off in a big way, resulting in moments that feel fresh and unpredictable. For others, it leads to a lack of focus, where the game feels like it's trying to do too much without fully refining each element. That's really the key takeaway from what reviewers are saying. Crimson Desert is a game of highs and lows. At its best, it delivers moments that feel next-gen in every sense of the word. Massive battles, dynamic interactions, and a world that feels alive and reactive. At its worst, it can feel inconsistent, repetitive, and occasionally frustrating. It's not a game that lands clearly in one category or the other, and that's why the reception has been so varied. Some reviewers are calling it one of the most unique open-world experiences in years, praising its willingness to take risks and do things differently. Others see it as a game that needed more time in development to fully realize its ideas. And then there are those who fall somewhere in the middle, appreciating what it does well while acknowledging its flaws. Where you land on Crimson Desert will likely depend on what you value most in a game. If you're drawn to technical innovation, dynamic systems, and emergent gameplay, there's a lot here to love. If you're looking for a tightly polished, consistently paced experience with a strong narrative, you might come away feeling a bit disappointed. Either way, it's a game that's generating discussion, and in today's industry, that alone says a lot. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. And if you want to support the channel even further, check out my Patreon, where my latest exclusive takes a deep dive into whether or not Xbox exclusives are dead. Until next time, game on.